Welcome back to the garage. In today's episode, I'm going to be getting some work done on my 580 case forklift. This is going to be different than the automotive videos that I do normally, so if you want to skip this one, completely understandable. Last video I done on this didn't get very many views, but I need this to be ready at a moment's notice to take some of these projects apart like I'm planning. So we'll get the camera set up, I'll give you an explanation of what I'm going to do, and we'll get to work. But one thing that I need to tackle is this carburetor. Now when I got the machine running, this thing sat for quite a few years. I just took the carburetor apart, cleaned it up, and put it back together, and I lucked out, didn't have any problems. Now I'm getting a hesitation. It's almost acting like it's flooding. So I think there may be something wrong with the float. So the carburetor's got to come back off of here. I got a rebuild kit for it. Once the carburetor gets some attention, it's time to change the oil in this tractor. I may even throw on some new plugs and wires, but we'll do some basic maintenance to this, and I'll also show you what I done off camera a while back. I bought and installed a brand new starter solenoid down here that actually has a manual button, which I've never seen before, to be quite honest with you. But I got two brand new battery cables as well, the negative and the positive. They run along the side of it. I still need to zip tie them up out of the way. But I took the battery box and made a lid for it. I also installed one of these kill switches on the side, and that made this machine quite a bit more reliable. But now let's tear into that carburetor and see what else I can get done. First thing I'm going to do is unhook this choke from the side, and you may hear a bit of background noise. It's a beautiful day. My dad came over. He's using the garage to work on a barbecue grill that he picked up, fixing it up a little bit, getting it ready for the nice weather too. So you may hear some grinding or some hammering in the background. Okay, now that that's unhooked, let me try to get in here and I'll take this fuel line off. It's got a compression style fitting, so I'll just take my crescent wrench, take it off from here instead of messing with the fuel line itself. I have a shut off on this, so there shouldn't be any kind of fuel running out of here. Up next is to get this inlet tube taken off. There's one. There's number two. Now it should come off of here. Don't lose the gasket. Now if you're like me and you've got quite a few projects to work on, it's always a good idea to do some prep work, because I believe that I'll get this carburetor put back together and on this machine today, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be sitting for 6 months. So I want to make sure that no mud daubers or wasps or anything can get up in any of these open areas. So I just block them off right now with some paper towels. That way I'm sure that I won't have a problem later on. So I've got my table set up outside because the weather's so nice, but at the same time, it's probably a recipe for disaster, because if I drop a small part off of here, it's going to be miserable to try to find it rather than if I was in the garage. But the weather's nice, I'm gonna try it out. I've got two paperweights on the ends of my cardboard so I don't get this all together and a gust of wind throws it all off the top of this table. But we're going to find out together if I made a good purchase on this rebuild kit, or if this is probably off to a bad start already. I opened this up probably 4 months ago whenever I bought it, but I can't remember if it has a brand new float in here. I'm gonna open it up. Okay, we're good. I was really worried about that, because a lot of the times you can buy these kits where it's just the small parts and you reuse your float, but I think there's something wrong with the one that's in this carburetor. So it's good that I have all of the parts I need to rebuild it. So I'll get this laid out. This kit even came with some fine brushes to clean the inside of his carburetor. That's it from the kit. Take this one apart and maybe see what went wrong inside, hopefully. I've got this umbrella over me, so let me step out into the light. But when you have a million projects like I do, sometimes it's difficult to keep tabs on each and every aspect of them. That's why it's nice sometimes to get a notebook and write down what you've done and what needs done. But you can see I cleaned in this carburetor. The area is extremely clean. There's no debris or anything of that nature inside of it. But whenever I took it apart, I remembered this float actually did have a pinhole in it. And my dad was nice enough to do the old brazing trick on it. And I guess it got us by for a while because it didn't have a problem right off the start. But sometimes a repair like this just won't last, sadly. Now I probably could have him braze it again, but since the kit came with the new float already, I'll just go ahead, put that in here, put it all together, and see what it does when I put it back on this forklift. Should be good, so I'll take these new gaskets, put it in here, put the new float in there as well, and we'll put it back on the forklift. Now, when my friend Wesley Johnson talked me into buying this machine, I mean that in the kindest way. We talk on the phone quite a bit. He's actually got his own YouTube channel. He has a four-wheel drive F600, much like my yellow one. I'll leave his channel linked in the video description below. But I had been looking for one of these for quite some time, and he was looking for one as well. We talked about the price, how they're usually pretty outlandish, and the cheapest one that I had ever seen up until this point was $2,500, and that was one that had a bad engine in it. Whenever I told Wesley Johnson that this one was for sale for $1,600 or best offer, he basically said, if you're not going to buy it, you're a fool. And I'm glad he talked me into it, because I would have regretted it later on. Like I said, this is a handy piece of machinery. I don't really know what I've done without having it in the past. The carburetor is reassembled and just about ready to go back on. I ended up needing to use some thread sealant in the threads for this adjustment valve at the bottom, but you can see the valve still turns, so I'm hoping this doesn't pose a problem in the future. I think the previous owner got in here and tightened it way too tight, but I cleaned up the threads and I done the best I could. Now, I didn't use every single one of the gaskets or plugs out of this kit, and coincidentally, this is the same exact kit that I need for the carburetor on my Case 6-way blade dozer that I just picked up a while back. I don't know if I can do both of the carburetors with it, but if I luck out, I may need to just change some of these gaskets and I can get away with doing it that way. But anyways, this carburetor is ready to put back on. I probably won't show doing it because it's just in the reverse order of taking it back off. But I need to also run down to the store and grab some spark plugs, wires, and some oil to get a little bit more maintenance done on this forklift. I'm happy to say that putting the float in here solved the problem completely. It idles fine. It doesn't have any kind of hesitation whenever I press the accelerator pedal down. Before, it would actually drip fuel from this adjustment valve on the back, but since I cleaned the threads up and I put some thread sealant in there, that's no longer a problem. The biggest issue I had was the fact when I drove this forklift, it would leak raw gas out of the front of this carburetor. But now that the float is doing what it should be doing, there's no more issues with the carburetor. Now it's time to drain the oil out of this engine. Now don't laugh at my catch pan here. It may look like the bottom drawer out of a 1970s Maytag refrigerator, but if it works, it works. I ran to the parts store and grabbed oil and a filter. This is the part number. I went ahead while I was at it and already wrote the date on here so I can at least prove to myself that I have at least changed it once in this machine's lifetime. And then the oil I got was some HPDG brand oil. It's evidently good stuff and it's completely formulated for my Case 580. So we'll go ahead and take the oil and filter and throw it on this tractor. Don't forget to put a little bit of oil on this rubber O-ring or you will have a very difficult time getting this back off of here. The first part of the video was recorded Sunday. Now it's Tuesday after work. I ran to the parts store. I got a new distributor cap, rotor, point set, and condenser, along with some spark plug wires. So now it's time to throw all them parts on this machine. And out of all of those parts that I mentioned, you can see in my hands that I only have the spark plugs down here because all of the other ones are wrong. The point set, the distributor, the rotor, they were all wrong, but that's not my parts store's fault. That's mine for not doing the proper research. They evidently made 4 different versions of this gasoline engine and they were totally different. At least the horsepower or something with the distributor was different. The spark plug wires are the type that you have to cut down yourself, so I'll just go ahead and put them on the machine once I get the correct parts in. I'll probably do that off camera because it won't be a full video in itself. Like I said, I'll admit whenever I'm wrong, so I just got the spark plugs. We'll go ahead and throw them in this. Now with all the other wrong parts, you're probably watching this and you're worried that I got the wrong spark plugs as well, but no, that's not the case. I actually got the number off of these plugs and took them to the parts store myself, so there's no issues with that. I know putting spark plugs in a 4-cylinder gas engine isn't the most entertaining thing in the world, so let me see if I can give you a good laugh, and we'll do a reenactment of me finding out all of those parts were wrong. Oh man, what a wet and miserable day at work. I sure hope I can put all these parts on my tractor and get it wrapped up today. Oh, fudge.
Only I didn't say fudge. I said the word, the big one.
Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. I know it's going to be a little bit different than the truck videos that I put out, but over the last 2 years of having a YouTube channel, I'll normally do a lot of things in the background and then later regret that I didn't film it. So this is kind of a introduction of maybe some newer videos that might come out of just piddling on some of the other projects. Like this, I actually made this grill from a ramp that came from one of my grandfather's scrap trailers. It actually covers up where the headlights would go, but I'm going to mount an LED light bar on the back. I need to also build a rollover protection system, or a ROPS, for this forklift. I've got one off of a small Clark forklift that I think I can adapt onto here. I almost forgot to mention, yes, I did check the point gap on the spark plugs before I put them in here. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment or a question down below, consider subscribing if this is the kind of content that you're into. And as always, just a friendly reminder that it doesn't matter if you're working on your project in a garage or in your driveway. What matters is that you go out there, you do the job yourself, and you learn more about your project, whatever that project may be. Now that this video's over, how about you go outside and work on something? My name is Zane, and I'll catch you next time.